For the movements, or was it very much sort of, hey, we really want you this position, this angle?
I feel like there was always an idea from them to begin with. They had formed, because like so much meticulous work goes into this. They did not show up saying, we'll figure this out. They showed up with very firm ideas, and then we had a dialogue. And the dialogue was a creative one, so we could bring our insights and we would discuss it, and then we would come to sometimes the conclusion that the original way that they decided was the way to go. And sometimes we'd come to the conclusion that we'd found something new that worked better, and sometimes we did multiple different versions to for them to choose later what fit best.
100%. No, I would just absolutely corroborate that and second that. Yeah, there was always a discussion. It was very genteel and civil. I thought there's no shouting. The directors are, creators, but also technicians and terribly nice people who function in the real world. They don't need a tan light. It's all light of day. There isn't the stress of having to relight in 10 minutes or losing the light. It was kind of a controlled environment. So yeah, those discussions did happen. And I remember one moment particularly. I think we were entering Heaven's Gate, and I was asked to come and sit. It might not have been that, but anyway, I was asked to come in and sit in this particular area. And I said, do you mind if I change up the timing of that? Because it would just fit the dialogue to get the point of relaxation or exasperation. And then a little bit later, and they'd be like, no, 100%, it's fine. So it definitely was mapped out. They had effectively they had their shots figured out. We had reference cameras in there, so you're still playing as if you're working on film or television. You're kind of working to orientate your work towards the camera. And so there is that dance, there's that choreography with the camera, because you know what their final end product is. But there was certainly a good amount of conversation, as you say, and there was time, just about enough time for that, and a certain amount of latitude to not re-block it, because that's our job, to make that move natural. But if the timing, the dialogue suits, a slightly later progression to that point, when you sit down at the bar, or I'm like, can I try this little thing? And they're like, yeah, sure. Often I find, just with the speed of things, and this is just a side note, and just something I'm working through at the moment, and this is naughty and not to be encouraged necessarily, I sometimes find it's better to ask forgiveness than permission. Because when you ask a question, I don't know, in lots of realms, it creates a conference and a council, and then somebody else comes up with an alternative that is now harder for you to do than the original. So often it's good just to do your thing. But given a certain amount of room to play, they were not. The blocking was there, the work was there. The guys were so passionate about it, and the original was there. Because you don't want to deviate too far from something that works so well. But there was, there was an element of generosity on that part.
There are beats in the original that will create like a vibration within fans, and if I would say, in my restless dreams, I see that town, people would be like, ooh, that doesn't feel like my Silent Hill, So they were aware of that. That was months before we started MoCap. MoCap was May 22, and then November 22, then you went back in February 23. And then we had months of just going to a voice recording studio for all of the dialogue that happens in the game. So probably 18 months or something.
Yeah, when you that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of their somewhere between 5 and 7 years actually making it themselves, animating it, positing it, reanimating it. It's a lot of work with it. So it's placeholders that they had, the figures, these 3-dimensional or 4-dimensional mock-ups that we were privy to. There's so much work, and so much work. It's kind of pleasing because you guys will have a better understanding and knowledge of this than I do, but it was lovely to see such a small team of people, so much devotion. in their office, playing all different characters, and having a stab at it is a bit like having a sound editor's voice suggesting the new line that you have to record on your own performance, and suddenly it's like, you have your line, and you're like, I see that, and then he says, which used to be there before, and then you have to come and do your version. But it was great to see these guys like really invested in it and playing all the roles, mocking it up. A lot of work from some very, very clever, very exciting, and they brought that energy every day. And they also kind enough to let us work as well.
So you put two very diametrically opposed sort of characterizations, and I wondered, maybe you do, maybe you don't. Was there a favourite one of the two to play?
No.
How would you get into sort of the differences? Would you block out having to do all of one and all of another, or would you move fluidly between the two?
We did not finish all of Mary and then do all of Maria, or vice versa. We would go back and forth between them. Obviously, there is more Maria to do. I thought it was a good feeling to go from one to the other. And I've tried all types of things with acting, and I found for me a more just kind of emotion-led, spirit-led approach works better. So I didn't have like a framework of these are the exercises I do before Mary or Maria. It was more, I would just like,
It was similarly to ask Luke earlier, did you end up inadvertently taking that overview of such serious topics?
I feel like the game is probably having more of an input on my life now that I am playing the games.
So you're streaming them, right?
Yes. And I feel like now, having gone through them as a player, it's been a month since I finished the remake, and I feel like the themes are still reverberating.
That's the beauty of films as well, but games, constantly you can go back and play it if you really want to in that specific moment,
But I knew from the first time I got the audition request for me to put myself on tape for this. I remember reading through it and just being a little bit perplexed, because I was like, this is not like any other video game audition I've ever done. Like, this is, what is this? And I didn't quite know, and it really pulled me in and made me intrigued and excited, and I can't describe how happy I was when I actually got to dive in and do it properly. Okay, it's scary. I was scared too. By the way, check out that toilet. Somebody left a present for you, and then I get attacked, and they're like, ha 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 ha. And it's just all a little bit less serious. And of course, I have this amazing gift of having insight from kind of behind the curtains first, and then I go into the front room. It's like being in the kitchen and then going to the ballroom.
Has anything surprised you in particular in that playthrough where you're like, I had no idea it was going to get like that?
I kept myself in the dark on some things. And I didn't think I'd kept myself in the dark on Angela's story, but that really got me.
You're both actors first and foremost. This idea of being computer games actors, voice actors, or actors, it's sort of transmedia's transcending those sort of lines. I wonder if you've seen many things, like Bruce Wayne as the Batman, and that wonderful episode of Del Toro's Cabinet of Curiosities. Do you have any thoughts or feelings about differences, similarities between these different jobs within acting? Are the lines blurring as it seems as a consumer? All people who do acting on stage or in TV are starting to join in computer games?
Yes, I mean, I think it's... Let me answer this carefully. It's essentially the same job. Like if you're acting, if you're performing, you're trying to present, a fully formed human being in whatever medium it is, whether it's television, film, stage, or indeed video games. And I think video games are very exciting at the moment. I think where the sort of distribution model has changed so much in film and television, I don't know, I think some of the corners have been knocked off, and video games are coming into the fore as a narrative form. They're almost more cinematic to me as I watch cutscenes in a computer game than they are indeed in cinema. Often, anyway. There are, of course, wonderful exceptions on both sides, but yeah, no, it's the same challenge.
The first scene that we did with Mary was the prison scene, which is both Mary and Maria. And so I feel like, in retrospect, I think it confused some fans, because my Mary in that isn't sweet. She's kind of like, you idiot, you left the videotape. What's wrong with you? You forget things. Be better, But I think that's part of making, like, the interesting fact of, like, it's both her and what she really was like. We're seeing that, but we're also seeing his probably guilt-ridden fantasy image of what she was like.
Which he's always trying to push away.
Yeah.
But keeps coming back.
Do you have strong feelings either way about the relationships in the movie?
I mean, there's a sort of the glaring forbidden fruit of Maria, like on the surface of it. But of course, she represents, many things, and this is obviously this is half the fun of it, immersive interactive experiences. You get to have your own feelings about it, project like a good novel. You project your own images onto it, your own experiences or thoughts or wishes. But yeah, I feel like, she definitely represents his guilt, an avenue that he should not be going down, and yet compulsively does. And then there's the quest for Mary, and I'm thinking about it now, but it's almost sort of his better self, and he's holding onto it so tightly and dearly. But of course, the closer and closer he gets to it, the more inevitable his doom. That whole dynamic fascinated me. I love I love the memory. Speaking of memories, nostalgia. I love the memory of a movie, Angel Heart, with Mickey Rourke and Robert De Niro. When I was growing up, I loved the concept of it. The detective, private detective investigating a crime that he discovers that he committed, and it's a similar idea, and I liked very much this sort of confused interaction that he has with Maria at any given juncture, which ultimately turns out to be a projection of his own psyche, his people. So it's an interesting one, because he's fighting so hard for this to be normal and to normalize it, but he's trying to interact with these characters who and understand his own feelings about these characters who are born out of his imagination and his trauma, self-inflicted trauma like this. So yeah, it's interesting, and I would be interested. I haven't played the game, but I would be interested to play it to see how it impacts me from the other side, as you said.
I am under immense pressure by the people here to lend you my PS5, and I am open to the idea.
Sounds like maybe there's another stream that could happen.
You're going to have to be very patient with me, because I'm back, and then, I gotta say a good thing. Literally, it's just an arrow.
4 years later.
One of the things I find really fascinating, especially about your version of the game, is how it's resonating with young women in a way that maybe even the original didn't. We had on the stage yesterday, we had a panel about Friday, so we had a panel on feminine horror, the change in how women are portrayed, these sort of things. Very kindly, one of our panelists, Fred, actually helped me with a lot of the questions, because I'm a massive fan of this, like the whole thing. I wonder, is there anything so you look at scenes where you go, I understand why you wouldn't gravitate towards this the way that maybe previously you had.
I think, I mean, there's no secret that, like statistically, women gravitate towards true crime, for example. This is a story of a man who kills his wife, which is sadly a common story. But this is a very nuanced one. It's from the man's perspective, and I think it's a weird one where we're also trying to understand where he's coming from, and like understand that he didn't just one day snap and kill his wife. There was a whole lead up to it. He was tested repeatedly, and also at the same time understanding that it's still not like he had no other choice. And I think women gravitate towards true crime often because they don't feel safe, and there's a drive to, like a primal drive to do the research, like a self-preserving drive. But then that's not what this story is only, it's so many other things. It's a story of a young woman who is broken by trauma inflicted on her by the men in her life. And we don't, sorry, I'm getting emotional thinking about her. We don't know if she is ever capable of breaking through that. I know somebody did a camera hack and saw that Angela is in the cemetery when they leave, which is interesting. So she didn't, she's on the outskirts, so that gives hope. But yeah, I don't know, I feel like we're drawn to understanding what is our danger. On Twitch, Salome something, but I also upload to YouTube if you hate Twitch for some reason. Some people do. And yeah, I'm excited to see what the original's like from the, not just looking at the cutscenes, but like going through it, moving through it. I'm really excited.
Luke, you made sort of a subtle reference to maybe something you're working on at the moment. Is there anything you can talk to us about what's coming next for you?
So it's a very different realm. There may have been a collaboration with people a person I've loved working with quite recently, who's sitting quite close to me. I can't really say very much about that, but there's a couple of games coming up, and I'm working on a TV show. So I'm working with a dog currently, which is a whole world of amazing challenges. I was saying something the other day, I'm not sure if I can actually deliver a line of hopefully nuanced dialogue without a dog trainer yelling, back up, you're working, underneath it. But there's a few things. I'm very blessed to have some employment and to be delivering, I hope, some pretty cool stories. But yeah, we're going to see more from you too. So
I was going to ask Sal, other than the streaming, which I'm sure is fabulous, what's on the horizon for yourself?
Nothing we can talk about.
We'll pretend this conversation never happened. Instead, we'll go to the crowd and say, please, one last round of applause for our fabulous guest.